Welcome to NUFDI Mythbusters with Mina, a series devoted to uncovering the truth about commonly misrepresented events in Iran's history that are still holding us back today. What's the myth we're going to bust today? The tragic Cinema Rex theater fire of 1978. Specifically, the idea that it was perpetrated by the late Shah and his security forces. This myth was popularized in the graphic novel Persepolis by Marjan Satrapi. For many in the diaspora and those in the West looking to learn about Iranian history, this book has become a go-to resource, and in many schools, it's even mandatory reading. Unfortunately, it contains many historical falsehoods, conspiracy theories, and outright lies that have falsely altered public perception of Iran's recent political history. So what really happened in the Cinema Rex fire? One of the world's deadliest terror attacks. On August 19, 1978, an arsonist lit a fire at Abadan's famed Cinema Rex. All told, nearly 470 moviegoers were burned alive in one of history's deadliest recorded acts of arson. Immediately following the incident, Ruhollah Khomeini and his fellow revolutionaries spread the conspiracy that the late Shah and his security services were responsible for this terrorist act. In the buildup of revolutionary fervor, egged on by propaganda from the Shah's Islamo-Marxist opponents, many of the same people who believed they'd seen Khomeini's face on the moon believed the rumors that the late Shah's government started the fire. In her book, Satrapi writes conclusively the people knew it was the Shah's fault. This belief further contributed to the growing revolution, inspiring scores of previously silent individuals to take to the streets and end the monarchy. But what's the truth? It wasn't the government that lit the fire. Far from it. Unfortunately, this narrative, amplified by Persepolis, has stuck for many as the truth. But this ignores obvious historical realities that Khomeini and his revolutionaries frequently targeted symbols of Iran's progress and increasing modernity, including free primary schools, movie theaters, bars and casinos, and institutions promoting women's rights and gender equality. In their campaign of terror against these institutions, the Islamo-Marxist groups used a variety of terrorist tactics, including drive-by shootings, bombings, and arson. Beyond the historical context, and despite the Islamic Republic's attempts to cover it up, we know who actually lit the fire and why. Only days after the victory of the revolution, Khomeini's revolutionary tribunals sentenced Captain Monir Tahiri to death for purportedly receiving guerrilla training in the United States and being involved, on behalf of the Shah's government, in burning down Cinema Rex. Despite his family insisting that Captain Tahiri had never even been to Abadan and that he had an alibi for the day of the arson, Khomeini's new regime tried to turn him into a scapegoat. In a now all too familiar tactic, he was wrongly and unjustly executed on February 23, 1979. But the victims' families did not believe the story and continued to pursue actual justice. Initially, the regime was unwilling to pursue the case of the Cinema Rex fire, but after immense pressure from the families, including sit-ins, the regime relented and began a short, publicly televised trial. Eventually, the regime tried Hossein Takp-Alizadeh, who admitted to setting fire to the cinema as a revolutionary act inspired by Khomeini. Beyond inspiration, Iranian journalists Alireza Nourizadeh and Mohammad Nourizad, among others, have reported on Takp-Alizadeh's direct connections to the revolutionaries, going so far as to quote regime officials as saying, "Our information shows burning Cinema Rex order came from Najaf." Najaf was Khomeini's headquarters and a center of radical Shia Islam. So it wasn't the late Shah or his government. It was Khomeini and his revolutionaries that burned down Cinema Rex and burned hundreds of innocent Iranians alive. Satrapi's version of events, what is sold to Western audiences as a fact, isn't just a misinterpretation of events. It's a blatant lie. But nearly 50 years later, why does this matter? This myth has continued to bend conventional wisdom and politics to justify the abhorrent actions of cruelty and brutality of the Islamic Republic and normalize it as a victim or a force against Western imperialism and Orientalism. This normalization, amplified by Satrapi's book, has manifested into a dangerous, pro-apologetic, pro-regime narrative that has long dominated the elite and intellectual circles that write and report on Iran. The Islamic Republic has always used manipulation and distraction techniques to achieve their mission. The Cinema Rex fire is no different from what it does today. More importantly, we also encourage you to read with caution. Satrapi is coming out with another book, this time on the women life freedom movement, which many fear include other falsehoods, misinterpretations, and lies meant to distract readers from the truth about Iran. That's it for this NUFDI Mythbusters episode. Stay tuned as we continue to break down more Iran-related myths and share the truth. Please sign up for our newsletter and make sure to follow us on X, Instagram, or online at www.nufdiiran.org.